The question is, order. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Paul Foster-Bill.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Sir, I certainly won't be agreeing with that motion. This Our Work, Our Future bill should be called the No Work, No Future bill. One can only assume that Mr Little has been set up by people in the opposition research unit, given he's just cited the example of Boeing, a notorious company which has accepted bribes and has recently breached WTO rules, is perhaps the worst possible example of government procurement that Mr Little could have come up with. So I really do wonder whether he has been set up internally with his own party there. Sir, I will be speaking against this bill because I care very deeply about jobs. I care very deeply about good quality, well-paying jobs in Wellington Central, the electorate that I live in and am working very hard in, sir. And over the 8 years of this national government, we've been focused on creating jobs. That's one of the reasons that the unemployment rate here in Wellington Central, where we're currently standing, fell 1.6% last year, down to 4.6%. And, sir, jobs are not going to be created by trying to sell more things to ourselves, which is what Mr Little's bill effectively does. We are a trading nation and we have to look beyond the confines of our own shores. So when you look at good companies that are based here in Wellington, such as Xero, a world-leading cloud accounting system provider, I think they should have loftier goals than selling an accounting system just to the New Zealand public service, although I would note that if you go into the school system, over 600 New Zealand schools do use their system because over the last few years we have made it easier for the government to procure locally. But I think they should have much higher objects in sight, such as selling to the United States of America. And this is an ironic piece of legislation, sir, given only this year we've had a Labour Party vote against the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have done exactly that, allowed our competitive IT companies here in New Zealand to actually play on the world stage, not to have their sights set just on what is here in New Zealand. Sir, this is a government which takes some pride in having actually reduced the overall proportion of our national wealth, the GDP, that goes into the state sector. There hasn't been a wholesale reduction in public servants to achieve this, sir. In fact, there's been an expansion of provision in a number of areas. But because we've managed to grow the economy at an OECD leading rate, we're actually near the very top of the OECD, whereas back in the days of the previous Labour government, it was an aspiration to get out of the bottom half. We're now near the very, very top. But by growing the economy, we've actually managed to shrink the size of the state as a proportion of the overall economy. This is a positive thing. It gives our businesses room to operate. It stops sucking the life out of those innovators who were, under the previous government, massively overtaxed and under-supported, except for with the Make Work schemes and the preferential treatment that certain businesses got with grants. So, sir, this piece of legislation does nothing to advance the interests of our IT companies, of those innovators, the creative people here in Wellington. And citing Weta Workshop as an example, again, I can't think of a scenario where the government might be out commissioning films to be produced with government production values. And there was a few examples. In history, there have been a few examples, Mr Little. Stalin was a great one for producing films through the state film production company. I think there are a number of third world dictators we could look at who believed in producing propaganda pieces to peddle their ideology. I think Fidel Castro was a good example of a person who liked to produce pictures to promote his own views, to promote his own interests and to promote his own political ideology. So I don't know why Mr Little cited Weta Workshop as an example of somewhere where we would go and do government procurement, because to my knowledge they're operating in a place that is very different from that. And so, look, I'm grateful to have attracted such a good audience here in the House and such a wide level of support for this speech from members opposite. But to come back to the bill in question, this is an unnecessary piece of legislation. As I said, MBIE has now got world-leading government procurement processes in place. So over 8 years, we've done much to streamline and improve the government procurement system. This includes creating clusters of excellence within the public service. So when it comes to for instance, procuring vehicles for government departments, when it comes to procuring technology for government departments, when it comes to looking for office space and accommodation, which is a highly topical issue at the moment following the Kaikoura earthquakes. This government has done much to make that as efficient for the tax-paying public as possible. So we can be sure, Mr. Speaker, that when we are spending that precious taxpayers' money that we all work very hard for to contribute to that pool, that we're getting the best possible value for the taxpayer, unlike the case in the previous government where we had huge wastage, huge overspends, huge cost overruns and a disgraceful waste of taxpayers' money. Mr. Speaker, this bill is also contrary to a number of our free trade agreements, those commitments we've signed up to internationally. Not only the WTO government procurement agreement, which we signed up to last year, which would enable Kiwi businesses a guaranteed access to a $2.3 trillion international overseas government contract market. Let's just put that into perspective, a $2.3 trillion New Zealand dollar international market that we would have access to when we're talking about figures at home of a much more modest nature because of the size of our economy and of our government. I think they've got their priorities on the other side of this House completely wrong. Let's give our companies access to a $2.3 trillion market and think of the jobs and the economic opportunities that would create in New Zealand rather than focusing once again on closing ourselves off to the rest of the world and selling things only to ourselves rather than those who have the money to pay for them and the need for our excellent services. Sir, there's another area I want to touch on. I had the benefit in my career with Foreign Affairs and Trade on seeing a number of companies that were operating and in partnership with government to sell New Zealand government intellectual property offshore. So, for instance, if you take an example in the Middle East, an education system that didn't have a good qualifications framework, that didn't have a good curriculum in place, partnering between the Ministry of Education, NZQA, Auckland University and a number of private sector consultancies to package up that IP that we've developed over time and to gain a benefit not only for the students who wanted to study in that country but also for the New Zealand taxpayer who has invested much in that intellectual property. Sir, we must set our sights far higher than the dark days of protectionism. We must look at the opportunities that are available in the rest of the world, and I'm proud to be in a government that has made it so much easier for small businesses especially. I look at for instance, the difference we've made to small businesses in the tax area, and I want to congratulate the Minister for Small Business, Craig Foss, and the Minister of Revenue, who has actually really made a difference for these small businesses of the sort that maybe Mr Little in his heart of hearts wants to help. So, for instance, we have the local stationery company that might be looking to provide stationery to a government department. They now have a provisional tax regime coming into place very soon, which is so much better for them. They're going to be paying tax as they go. They're going to have the doubt and they're going to have their potential penalties as long as they act in good faith and comply with the rules. They are going to have the doubt and the potential penalties taken away. Labor sat in office for 9 years, did nothing for that. They're happy for small businesses to be punished by a punitive provisional tax system. This is a government which has actually done something about it, and it's one that I'm very proud to be a part of. The new user-friendly framework that we've put in place for companies is actually transparent and in line with our international trade deals and best practice internationally. And the new guidelines replaced 44 different pieces of legislation. So it seems to me that Mr Little is simply aiming to muddy the waters with this. This is a political ploy, and it's a rather cheap political ploy because it will do nothing to create jobs, it will do nothing to create economic growth, it will do nothing to help people in the regions of New Zealand, and I believe it will do nothing to help the hard-working Wellingtonians who are in those both small businesses and those large enterprises like Xero, like our airport, like the Weta Workshop, which for some reason Mr Little thinks will be getting his taxpayer-funded propaganda films when he gets in. I think this is an extraordinarily bad, but perhaps well-intentioned piece of legislation, and for all of those reasons I've cited, sir, I oppose it and I do not commend it to the House.
Mr. Speaker.